Hi guys, Jay here from Just Technics, here today with another video for you, and this one here is on the Mixars LTA turntables. As promised, I ordered these directly from DV247 in Germany. They turned up about 2 hours ago from the courier, box fresh, brand new, unboxed both of them purely to do this video for you so you could see. And one turntable, this one here, I've had on test for about 40 minutes, going in between computer audio files and real records on one deck, so I can see how precise the pitch is on them. Now, let's be honest, not everybody can spend hundreds and sometimes thousands nearly of pounds on turntables. In this day and age now, the way things are going, you don't really know what you're getting. We've seen this now with the Pioneer PLX 1000s, even the reloops, to the Den VL12s, everything. It's an absolute minefield with regards to buying turntables, especially if you haven't got the money in your pocket to go out and buy a pair of Technics. So this is why I've started doing these videos, purely for the fact of I'm trying to find a good quality turntable that does everything on the tin that you want it to do. Okay, it sounds ridiculous, but if you use Technics and you want to get back into using another set of turntables, but you don't want to spend out over £1,000, if you're lucky under £1,000, on a set of 1210s, whether they're 1200s, Mark II, Mark V, whatever, then we need to find you something, you know, cheaper and in the class. So this is for the guys out there that won't want to spend any more than 500 quid. Okay, and I'm pretty much aware now you can buy Reloop RP7000 Mark II cheap enough, second hand, if you're lucky, like the Pioneer PLX 1000s. But these decks all inherit even the same internals from the same family. So they're all produced and made by Hampim. Okay, that is the group that makes all the internals for these turntables. So for all we know, this turntable, for an example, may very well have a Stanton motor, and I'm pretty sure it does. Stanton straight 150 motor. You'll find that the arm assemblies are used on the older Stantons, the older reloops. Again, very, very good quality. Pitch controls, I need to find out where these are from, but again, very, very nice. No nasty dead spots from what I can see, but I need to do a thorough check on this. And it's got various features that you'll find on other superior turntables, like you also have your recessed strobe housing for the start and stop assembly with the on and off switch. You have your removable targets, which are blue LEDs. The LEDs as standard on these decks are also blue. You have adjustable start and brake. So if you like to have your decks start off when you hit the start and stop button a little bit slower, you can calibrate that to exactly what you want. And exactly the same with the brake as well. So you can hit the brake and it will slow it down as slow as you want or as fast as you want. Really, really nice. Quartz lock on there too. And there's no nasty click or anything for those of you that moan about having the click at 0, which is usually just a ball bearing and spring that stops the pitch at the 0% lock. Now, the other thing about these turntables too is the LED for the pitch, when you are actually at 0, illuminates when you're over it. Whereas obviously if you're on a pair of Mark Vs or M3Ds, you'll find that you'll have no LED unless you click the quartz lock. So for those of you out there that are quite fussy about your LEDs not working when you really want them to, like that, that's another thing that you're going to like, especially if you're near the 0 point. You know when you're at 0 because the light will illuminate. But if you're using your ears and you're halfway up the range, it's up to you whatever way you do it. Everybody's different. But yeah, in terms of features, so you have two separate audio outputs on the back of these. You have a phono and line switchable output, and you also have a separate output, which is literally next to that, which is another set of RCA sockets, purely for line output. So the design feature of this branded turntable for a Mixars is that it's mainly aimed more at turntablists, again, like every branded turntable is nowadays, than the club DJ. So you've got two different outputs, so in theory you can run one turntable to two different mixers. Now this is also very, very handy, even if you didn't go for the straight arm version of this and you went for the S-bend version, which is the same price as far as I'm aware online. Could vary though, I found them at the same price when I looked at these. But the good thing is, if you've got a 2-channel mixer and you say, for an example, you have a set of Technics, and as we all know, Technics will run for a phono level. So you go through phono into your mixer with the grounded connector cables, and you're only left with line connectors usually on the back of your mixer, where you put CDJs into, or your tractor units, Serato, etc. So you could put these next door to your Technics, either side of them, have a 4-deck setup, flick your decks over to the line input on your mixer and run these alongside your Technics. So one minute you could decide, I want to use my Technics today, you go on to phono. If you want to use these the next night, flick them to line. Or you may even go, I want to mix one Technics with one of these Mixar decks. You can have one on phono, and one online. So it's really, really cool that you can actually have a 4-deck setup with a 2-channel mixer. Obviously, you're going to be able to mix the 2 tracks together from 2 decks, but at least you have that flexibility of going between whatever turntable you want to, no matter the brand, because you've got the option of having phono or line at the same time. That is really, really cool. That's the first time I've seen that on a turntable. But also means you can run it through 2 different mixers. So if you like having a scratch mixer rigged in with a different fader, so you've got an old Vestax or something, but you also have your club mixer there, obviously you can rig that out too. But that's where things start to get a little bit more complicated. Me, I just like the fact that I can put these alongside my Mark 5s at home if I wanted to, and I can flick them over to line, and I can use these or go between my Mark 5 and one of these, or a pair of these, and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, really, really strong motor. So like I said, I've had one of these on test for about 40-45 minutes, going backwards and forwards between tracks on the computer, going on Spotify, etc., and just mixing normal vinyl I've got here with my big collection here, just going between different styles and seeing just how precise the units are to work. So let's start off with the tone arms like I was originally. So inherited from that, I've got the Stanton Straight 150. Most of the old Stanton units all look very, very similar, if not exactly the same. These units are black, as you can see. They look really nice, these decks. I am actually really impressed considering how much they were, and the overall build quality and the way that they work. Now, the arms, like I say, from the Stanton series, you'll see them on a lot of other turntables. There were some people online moaning about having slightly loose bearing pivots on the top, so when you move the arms you'll find there's some slight play. I haven't found that with these. I mean, if you do have that and you do decide to bite the bullet and get a pair of these, but you find that you've got loose gimbal pivots, and all you've got to do, flathead screwdriver and just slightly nip it. It should be as simple as that. But let's be realistic, if that does happen, there's quite a lot of movement and you're not happy, send them back, get another pair. You know, it's really never feel confident doing that. But that's with regards to the arms. The anti-skate sections don't have any markings on them at all. So there is no numbered section at all. It's just a black piece of plastic. The anti-skate obviously works, but there is no markings. So realistically, leave these on 0. You don't want any resistance going back to the arm, because the minute you touch your anti-skate, pin underneath the arm is going to push it back to the armrest. So you want to leave them on 0% anyway, so leave them off. That way you've got no resistance, it's free moving across the record. For scratches especially, that's a really good thing. So leave it on that. Cope very, very well with scratching. Like I said, within the 40 minutes of doing this, I did try my scratch records out a few times on one deck. Trying to get it to skip was a bit of a task in itself, especially as you're using the straight tone arm with the correct needle. So I was using an autophon with mine, and I had absolutely no issues whatsoever. With the resist pad, with the integrated on-off switch on here obviously being recessed on top of the deck, that also works very, very well, because you're kind of going to accidentally knock the on-off switch on the deck at all. Like with a Mark II, if you're not used to using them, or the odd occasion a few too many to drink, you're going to knock that. It always happens. People do this all the time, and I was guilty of doing that too. But you're not going to have that issue with this. The 33 and the 45 buttons on these decks are rubberized. The start and stop button is made out of a plastic. They feel nice and tactile to use, along with the 33 and the 45. The start and brake assemblies on these, but you can adjust the start and brake speeds of these decks. Again, they're slightly recessed into the unit. Now, I thought these buttons, they were basically buttons that you push up and down, and it pop the button up, move it to where you want, pop it back down again. That's not the case. They are deliberately set lower into the turntable so that you can't, well, I suppose accidentally knock them, but in reality your hand's going to be nowhere near there. If you're mixing, your hand's going to be over the pitch, you're not going to be anywhere near start and brake, or the reverse. Everything has been put in such a strategic place to not get in your way. So things like the M5Gs, for an example, Technics M5Gs, they have the pitch and the reset on the bottom underneath the pitch. Probably the worst place and worst design I've seen on any turntable in that area. But, ignore the alarm, sorry guys. But yeah, but these don't have that issue, and a lot of other turntables also don't have that issue. But you've got a pitch range of 8, 16 and 50%, as you'll see on a pair of Stantons. Obviously reloops I think is 25 and 50%. So for those of you that mix house, techno, trance, hard dance, all the good stuff, you're probably going to be staying between 8 and 16. Mainly 8, unless you want to start turning into more chipmunk, so you're going to turn it into 16 and then 50. So for turntablists that want to start using the faders to really quickly move up the range, and obviously 50% and 16 is going to benefit you massively, instead of the plus or minus 8 that you'll find on just about any pair of turntables on the market. So what are they like to use? Now, like I explained right at the beginning, I've only had one turntable plugged in. This one's purely been unboxed out of there, so you can see the pair of them on video, and the time that these are actually going to get plugged in is probably tonight. So if you're expecting an audio demonstration on this video, you're going to need to wait, because I'm going to be recording an audio mix on these. It's going to be a web camera view down. It's probably going to be recorded tonight. So I'm going to take them home, plug them alongside my Tractor Z2 mixer that I have, and we'll get a mix recorded, and you'll be able to see me using these on a web camera, and we'll go from there. But in use, I'm very, very impressed. The only thing that I'm not too sure on, they look great, I love the way they look. The only thing I'm not too sure on is the top coatings of the plinths. So there's two things actually, there's the plinths and the bases. So being a sub 250 quid turntable, if you're buying just the one of them, I think they're what, 475 quid for a pair. It's not a lot of money for what they are, but you're going to expect things not to the high premium of some of these other turntables because of what you're buying. So even though the inwards are going to be practically identical to every other Super OEM deck in this region, or any region, they're practically identical internally, there's going to be slight differences in terms of quality. So the bases on these are made out of plastic. Now again, I'm expecting people, if they're going to buy these, they're only going to be really using these for home use. I wouldn't think they probably fare very well with feedback and dampening if you're going to take them out in clubs. I suppose you could change the feet, stick them in some good quality flight cases with some foam insulation or whatever you're going to do. But I think in this price range, for someone that wants to use them at home for a mess around, or to stick them in a studio for a bit of sample recording, this is exactly what you want to go for. So the plastic bases would not really bother me. These would be going home, so they wouldn't bother me either way. And most time, 9 times out of 10, the majority of working DJs, let's be realistic here, you're going to be using either a controller, CDJs, or Tractor, right, or Serato. So DVS, phase, or a controller-based unit or CDJs. So plastic bases don't bother me, but it might bother you. The top coating on these, like I started saying about before I divvied on about the bases, the plinths on these decks are rubberized. Now, sounds a bit different because it is. I don't really know any other turntables like this, if I'm honest. And just from touching them, you get that feel, that rubberized feel. But the first thing I noticed, like anybody else would notice if you do bite the bullet and get a pair of these, or just one, is they do like to attract a little bit of dust. So not only are you going to get that horrible thing where you're going to touch and lean your hand over the pitch area and you get all your greasy palms and fingers and things obviously sitting on top of them, it's going to eventually sink into the rubber, and you've got to clean them and rub them to get them off. They can scratch easily, obviously being plastic, being rubberized too, so you need to bear that one in mind. But yeah, they like to attract a bit of dust. Just from taking the white foam section off the bags off of these decks, the first thing that happened in here, and this workshop's pretty damn clean, just dust vroom, straight on them. So recommendations quite simple for this: dust covers. You can buy the generic dust covers that you can find online for 30 quid that come with the sockets and the hinges. They will go straight on the back. But all the Technics ones, they will go straight on. And you've got yourself a couple of cheap dust covers for them, which is great because you obviously don't come with dust covers. But then that being said, I can't see dust covers really stopping them from getting dust. It sounds crazy, but I don't think it will. So Deck Savers is more than likely going to be your best choice really for covers with these turntables if you really don't want to keep cleaning them every 5 minutes. So Deck Savers will go on these absolutely fine. I've already checked it anyway, and that is going to be your best option. In use for precision, so for those of you that are not turntablists, which is what my videos obviously are targeted at, is club DJs, not turntablists. For those of you out there that are not going to be scratching, and all you're going to be doing is back queuing, maybe the odd rewind or anything like that, and mainly mixing, this is what you're going to be interested in. So I've used throughout my years, not just in the videos that you've seen here from DJ shops, etc. I've used pretty much every modern turntable that you can think of, and older turntable. Let's be realistic, and the older turntables, from belt drive, the early direct drives, to obviously to the more modern now Super OEMs. And again, these fare with just about any other deck. So if you had a pair of Pioneers in front of these, yes, quality-wise, as in cosmetically, you probably won't be happy with the finish of these in comparison. The plastic bases, again, I believe they're plastic on the Pioneers and the Reloops, but it's still quite weighty. I mean, let's compare this to a Mark 7. This is the best way of doing this, because everyone's going to be interested in this. Comparing these to a pair of Mark 7s. Mark 7s are lighter than these, Okay, so these are heavier than a pair of Mark 7s. I think, well, the arm build quality of a Stanton, I've always liked the build quality of Stanton, the arms, the plimps, etc. I've always thought they're a very good premium unit. But the one thing that I was always let down with on those decks was the digitally controlled pitch. Now, it's a strange one with the pitch controls in all of these turntables because they all react differently. So if you buy a Reloop RP7000 Mark II, for an example, that shares exactly the same pitch slider unit as what the Pioneer PNX 1000 has as well. Same thing goes for the arm tube from that unit too, which I've said quite a few times. Now, in terms of quality of the arms of these, in comparison to the Denon VL12, these will whoop the arse off of the VL12, purely for the fact of it's better build quality. Stanton arm's better in every shape or any shape or form compared to that is on the Denon, which is basically a Gemini copycat version. So I rate these higher in terms of audio quality than what the Denon would be. In terms of weight, I think these are much better than what you're going to find on the Mark 7. Pitch control. Now they feel super smooth, and the best way of describing this, because a lot of DJs have, if you ever use Stantons, if you ever use the Reloops or any newer modernised turntable other than the Technics, the new Mark 7s or newer Mark 7s, then you will know that they all feel buttery smooth. They feel quite firm to the touch, whereas the Mark 7 is quite a rough feel to the pitch. Now whether they change that in the newer versions, I mean, there's been some mixed reviews on that just on the pitch alone, but the actual pitch on the Mark 7 feels really rough in comparison. So overall feel of pitch, I prefer these. Now, I spent the majority of the 40 minutes on this earlier when I was going backwards and forwards on the computer, mixing in hard dance and classic trance. So we've got plenty of the stuff here. So putting a track on YouTube, putting a track on Spotify, running it through my Roland mixer, and just mixing in normal records, going backwards and forwards. Yeah, I mean, personally, I think for anybody out there that can't afford a lot of money in comparison to Technics prices and want something that they can pull a mix off on that are surprisingly pretty damn accurate, I think these are going to be your go-to, especially for the price. I mean, look, you're not even spending 500 quid, including delivery. There's no import fees to pay. They come from Germany, come from DV247. They are the cheapest retailer at the moment that offer these turntables. Now, whether they're going to stay a current model, I don't know. This always seems to happen. There was a lot of backlash that I received from doing the Denon video, the VL12 video. I mean, I mentioned on the original video that I said that they were discontinuing them, or they were discontinued, I think I said. There were some people commenting saying that they weren't discontinued. Absolute rubbish, they are discontinued. I've spoken to In Music Group, who are Denon, they are Newmark, Ion, Akai, Rain, they're all the same company. They have confirmed to me that those turntables are discontinued. And the biggest issue that you have is, whenever I get round to doing these videos, I mean, if you imagine if these were £100 dearer and these weren't on offer, I probably wouldn't have looked at them. Like a lot of you out there would have looked at them either. But because they're at a more affordable price, you're going to naturally want to go for them. There's always a reason why they're at an affordable price. It's either because they're being discontinued and they're making way for another model, or they're just trying to discount the prices because no one's probably ever really heard of them. And no one wants to give them the time or day because they're a pair of Mixars and people don't know what they are. So again, I wouldn't be surprised if these have either been discontinued or are going to be discontinued. So in my honest opinion, if you are in the market for a pair of sub £500 turntables that are good quality, mix well, have good quality stable platters, really good quality arms, nice sound quality, with a couple of decent carts and styluses, you really are in for a bit of a winner. Now, in terms of precision with the pitch, I found it super easy mixing beats on these. I mean, you have to, obviously, what's the word I'm thinking of with this? You have to get used to the pitch because it is digitally controlled, okay? But unlike that you'll find with the Stanton or even that of the Reloop, these, when you move them, they stay. You may find that they start to drift, as majority of these turntables do, but even touching the platter, the torque settings on these are not like what you'd have with some of these really heavy duty battle decks where you hit the start and stop and your fingers, it wants to rip your fingers and your fingerprints off because they're so highly strung on the motor. These aren't like that. Now, considering I repair, modify, customise Technics turntables all day long, 6 day weeks, I'm pretty much used to how they should feel. Okay, whether they lack torque, whether they're working correctly or not. These are very, very easy to to get on with. I mean, even silly things like if you want to touch the platter to slow the track down, with a pair of Mark IIs, if you're to do that, if you don't like riding the pitch and you prefer to touch the platter, you'll find that instead of having the platter dots jump at you and you feel the motor fighting you, these will naturally just slow down. Very, very similar to the Denon VL12. One of the reasons why I loved that deck so much was because, not just because of all the other features that deck had. I mean, it did have 3 dead spots on the fader, which was a pain in the arse, let's be honest, but it was a nice deck. The arm quality was the biggest thing that let it down. But the pitch I loved and the platter I loved. So if you can get that combination right, or just the one of them right, even if you have to be more hands-on with the platter to keep things locked. So let's say you've got your two channels open and you're literally bringing in a track, and you've had the 2 tracks going, you've got the one going, you just cued it, you let it go, you got it where you want it, giving it about 15-20 seconds, and you start to slowly hear it drift. Not suddenly, but slowly hear it drift. You've only literally just got to brush gently on that platter to slow it down, and you're back in business again for another 20 or 30 seconds, depending on how tight you've actually managed to get the mix. Now, in the the alarm again, sorry. In the defense of Mixars with these, the pitch control on these, the precision is very, very, very accurate. Now, when I take these back tonight and I give these a thorough test, obviously you'll be able to see and judge for yourselves from my mixing how well these lock. But what I may also do is do a test and see how stable they are going through tractor, because the majority of turntables, whether you're using phase or DVS, you'll see some fluctuation on the screen with your BPMs and your pitch, and fluctuations in the pitch when you physically move it. What I'll also do is check for dead spots. Now, the first thing I did notice with the one deck that I have tested is when you are around the 0 point, obviously they lock beautifully. They are literally, they're dead solid. That's exactly what you want, and there is minimal wow and flutter. It's brilliant. But the one thing with this, I'm trying to remember what I was actually trying to get to now. So it wasn't the pitch. Oh yeah, that's right, sorry. So when you've got it around the 0% lock, when your LED lights up to say you're at green, if you imagine you have 2 different types of older, well, 3 different types of older Mark II slider units, but the newer versions, they literally, when you hover around the LED on the 0 point, the LED will just turn on and off really quickly, as long as you're quite close to the track itself. With the older style units, the green LED on a Technics would stay on for that little bit longer either way. So you'd have a bigger dead spot around the 0 point. This is very similar to that. Now, I'm going to thoroughly test these out tonight, and I'll let you know my honest opinion on that with a follow-up video. But yeah, for a pair of decks for under 500 quid, if you want something for your spare room, your studio, or a pair to mess around on, you are going to be really happy with these. There's a lot of mixed reviews from people, but again, there's not really anybody that's looked at it in the most realistic way, and that is they're under 250 quid per deck, and you've basically got a Pioneer PLX 1000 merged in with a standard straight 150 and basically merged in with a really Parpy 7000, but there's some trickery done with the pitch control. I found it easier mixing on this deck than the RP 7000 Mark II, and as I explained before, I find that the pitch control is quite twitchy on them. But again, when you get them where you want them, they lock quite well, but you've got to be more hands-on with the platter or your pitch. So if you like riding the pitch, you'll have no worries really with any of these turntables, is the truth. But because of the digitally controlled, you're going to struggle if you're used to only using Mark IIs. But if you're used to using an old worn pair of Mark IIs or Mark Vs, whatever you've got, you're going to get on these and go, geez, do you know what I mean? It's going to be completely different to what you're used to. But if you've got the money spare and you're looking to buy a set of turntables, you don't want to spend nearly £1,000 for a pair of Technics, this is what I'd be looking at, especially for the price. For those of you out there that want a third turntable to add to your collection, you might already have a pair of Technics already. This will do the job nicely. I'd rather have this over the Mark VII. Now, I've had more criticism on more posts in the past. I was looking through YouTube recently, people saying that I'm really just a Technics die-hard, you know, through and through. That's all I'm going to use. You're literally nowhere near the truth with that. I have to use CDJs when I play in clubs or festivals. I have to use them because you don't know what you're using. If you're using turntables and their Technics, you don't know how well they are internally. You don't know how good the pitch control is, how worn they are, how worn the decks are in general. So I genuinely use CDJs unless I know that the turntables I'm using have been freshly serviced by yours truly. And I'm very lucky to say that the majority of places that I go to, the turntables that I walk up with and behind the booths, they are done by me. So if I know they're used by me, I use them. But this is the same thing. At home, sub £500, brilliant decks. You could spend £800 on a set of turntables and be really surprised when you get a call from me, when you send to me to get them serviced, because there's loads of issues that need solving. There's a pair here at the moment, pair of Mark IIs. Someone's just bought them second hand, about £800-900 for the pair. Sounds like a good price, which in reality it kind of is. But again, bearings broken, pitch control's heavily worn, but the motor spindles are partially seized. There's plenty of things that need to be changed, horrible cables at the back. This stuff just adds up more money. So if you want a third deck for your collection or a pair of cheaper turntables, this is what you go for. You're getting the best of everything. You've got dual outputs on audio. That's awesome in itself. And like I say, you can test these alongside your Technics. You do what you want with them, and that's exactly what I'm going to do as well. Removable IC kettle connections, so physically removable cables. The RCA cables that these come with are nothing spectacular, just a basic pair of RCAs. They do the job though, gold-plated tips, all the usual bits. No grounding cables on these neither. So they're internally grounded and no feedback. They sound fine as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, overall, a really nice pair of turntables. Like I said, I'm going to be doing a web camera top-down version mix on these, either trance, hard dance. I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet. That'll be tonight, and I'll get that uploaded as soon as possible. But I thought I would just give you all a brief run through on these decks. But in conclusion, guys, yeah, I really like them. I think for the price I paid, if I'd have been offered a pair of these originally when I first started, and they were for under 500 quid, I would have been very happy. You know, you get used to them, you adapt as the world's looking for, you adapt to the pitch control. So it sounds easier than it is with certain ones. We all know this. I've used so many turntables. Some of them, you go to use the pitch, they're horrible. They just don't lock. They don't want to stay still. It's very twitchy, and you're constantly hands-on. You're going to be hands-on on just about any turntable, modern turntable with digitally controlled pitch. That's just the way it works. Every pitch is analog, but it's controlled digitally. So it's just trial and error, trying to find the sweet spot between the two. You'll pull off a mix on these with absolutely no issues. You may find them start to drift, so you either work the platter or work the pitch, and just keep your hands on them. I've said before in previous videos where I said you always see DJs when they're playing on a lot of modern gear now, their hand is glued to the pitch. They're very hands-on. Even when the fader is open, that hand and their thumb and finger is glued to that pitch control. They start going out and they're constantly all over the place. Every deck now is like that, unfortunately. So I'm on the mission to try and find a pair cheap that's going to do the job for you, and I think I found them. So this is a really, really nice pair of turntables to try for under 500 quid. And my advice is, if you're after a pair of cheap decks, buy them. I'm not sponsored in any way by DV247 or by Mixars, okay? I spent my own money to do this review, and if they genuinely were rubbish, I would put these back in the boxes, I'd send them back, and I'd put this video up once they're back with them and I got the money back. It's my own pocket doing these reviews for you. It's not just some random guy sitting in the back of a warehouse, you know, going, right, let's test this out today. We'll test that out today. No. Brand new, under 250 quid a deck. What more could you really want? You got good pitch, stable, super stable platter. It takes a lot to slow these platters down as well. Really hands-on, really loads of pressure. Super stable arm with a straight tone arm. You can get the S-bend version if you want. Probably what I should have gone for, but they're really nice. Removable target, really nice. Recessed power switch, really handy. 45 adapters included. You've got head shells as well. Obviously no carts and stylus, but everything in the box to get you going. All you need is some good carts or Concords, and away you go. So guys, hope that's helpful to just about anyone that is asking about these turntables. If you do have any more questions about them, please leave the comments below on the video. And like I always say to you, if anybody decides to leave bad comments, nasty comments, anything like that, you'll be removed from the page straight away. You'll be blocked and you cannot report. If you've got nothing nice to say, please don't say anything nice at all. Everyone's got their own right to their own opinions. My opinion is cheap pair of decks, and it really is brand new, box fresh. I think these are one of the nicest pairs I've used for under 500 quid brand new. And that's all you need to know. So keep your eyes peeled for the next video, guys. It's going to be uploaded on YouTube. I'll try and get it on there tonight. or as soon as possible if I can't do it tonight, but I'm pretty much will get it recorded tonight, guys, all right? So thanks for watching, everybody. And obviously, if you haven't already subscribed or liked the video, please make sure you do. So like, subscribe, and keep your eyes and ears peeled to the page, guys, all right? Thanks for watching, everybody. Take it easy.